The first edition of Louisville Live in the Pat Kelsey era is in the books. Myself, Jacob Lane, and Roman Kelly will be alongside to give you all the tea on Louisville Live, and we'll dive into some players that we're looking forward to watching this season. All that and more on the next Starting 502 podcast. Roll the tape.
This needs to be an event that is at 8, 9 o'clock. I know that's a late one on a Saturday night. Yep. Make this a party. Turn this into a party.
Starting 502 podcast. We're here in the Kern's Corner studio, brought to you by, as always, by Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon. My name is Presley Meyer, Jacob Lane alongside, and Roman Kelly. We didn't scare him away quite yet. Back for another edition. So, guys, I know Jacob, Roman, were you actually there in person? I guess we should have addressed this.
I wasn't able to make it. I had to be at the Big X Studios.
That's right. So Roman was not there, but Jacob was a special guest of Louisville legend Russ Smith this weekend. I don't know if that's is that private information. I'm not sure, but
I don't know. I mean, if people saw me there, they saw where I was at. So I mean,
that's right. Just swanking it up in the suites with Russ.
Living lavish.
I know.
I constantly find myself being like, I don't deserve to be here. Why am I here? Like this is not for me.
You deserve to be there. Don't do that.
I had a great time. The drinks were fantastic. Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon, as always, provided incredible alcohol. And I got to say, the best moment of the night, basketball or non-basketball, my wife, by the end of the night, had been enjoying Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon and, a little bit more socially willing to talk to people and just desperately wanted to know what Russ was drinking. So worked up the nerve to ask him and then started drinking more of those. So that was her finally going up to us and be like, all right, man, I've been watching you. Like, what are you drinking? That looks fantastic. It was great to see. But no, it was a good time being there with them. And there were a ton of big names in the house too. You had some, former cards. You had some, visitors, things of that nature. So, setting the stage for first year for sure.
So from the outside looking in, I feel like this is a very social media made event. And I think it's something that's meant for recruits and to, draw people's interest in the program more than anything. And so from the outside looking in, they had just over 8,500 people there. But what was the atmosphere like? What were your key takeaways from your visit? And, what'd you enjoy? What'd you not enjoy?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting going into it, kind of preparing for what to expect, knowing that the event really kind of hit a thud with Kenny Payne and the lack of hype, really, with that being the kickoff to the season and the, a way to generate some excitement and hype around the season. It was nice to have the event back, but really unsure of kind of what it was looked like. When I got in there, I was shocked at just kind of the setup. And the first key takeaway is that I still think we're struggling to find what the perfect venue is for this event.
Sure.
Based off of what this was, the Center was almost too big. They had the south end zone blocked off, which is where the players would come out, where they had coaches come out, the hoop where they did a lot of the events, the 3-point contest, the slam dunk contest, everything was on the far end. So unless you were on the baselines at the lower level, and of course the upper deck was all blocked off as well, it was really challenging to have a good sight line. And that made the event feel a little bit too big, in my opinion. I was on the end zone of the stadium and couldn't see much of anything happening without watching the big screen. And it's, for the other people who were sitting where I mentioned, I'm sure it was a little bit better. But it was really hard to see. Things got going a little late. So I thought that there was buzz in the arena early. There really wasn't a lot happening prior to the event starting. There wasn't really any form of entertainment, really much happening. It was really more just kind of like a concert, right? People are coming in, just kind of mingling, getting their seat. It was a first come, first serve. So seats would fill up and then they would encourage people to move down to try to fill the space. And at first it felt really lackluster, but when you looked up as the event got going, it was a pretty big crowd. I will say they did a good job of getting as many folks in there as they could based off of the way that they sold seating. So the event, as I mentioned, buzz is kind of building up, but it really starts to die down because things were slow to go. Like at 8 o'clock, which was when things kicked off, You had the on-court announce team come out and kind of kill some time. They did some announcements, whatever. But the players didn't. It didn't feel like they started actually being introduced until closer to 8:15, 8:20. And then the player introductions for both the men's and women's team took upwards of 10 minutes for each team. Introducing every single player, allowing them to pick their walk-up songs. So it was really like, again, you had this opportunity with everybody in the palm of your hand, and it was just really slow getting going. As I mentioned, only really a third or fourth of or maybe a half of the arena can see everything without seeing the big screen. So it's kind of hard to follow. And there was no big splash, anything kind of happening prior, no, musical performances. Obviously they've had Jack Harlow in the past, but really not much going on there. So it's just a lot of buzz. They get everybody in, everybody's introduced. Jeff Wall speaks, and it's great. And then Coach Kelsey speaks. And while I thought he did say some, really encouraging things, I don't know, man. For me personally, I just felt like the moment was there. Like like everybody was just waiting on pins and needles for the first words. Like, what was this going to be? And not that it was disappointing, because like it doesn't really matter. But it just, I don't know. It just didn't really get me going. It didn't really build the hype even more. And then they went into the 3-on-3, which I got to say the big takeaway from that is Steven Van Treese was balling, dude. He hit a 3. Yes, man. Like, first of all, most people, getting into the arena thought he was like a coach, didn't realize he was actually going to play because, Peyton didn't play. Nobody else, like alumni, played that I'm aware of. So it was just Steven Van Treese. No, man, he was out there setting screens, getting rebounds, just being Steven Van Treese. Like, not shit's changed. So that was fun to watch. And I really did enjoy the mingling of the women's basketball team and the men's team at the same time into that game. But everybody's just trying to take it easy. No one's really trying to go hard. Yeah. They're wearing hoodies and sweatpants with their jerseys. And one complaint I heard from a lot of people was that they were very annoyed that the players, everybody wore the jerseys backwards.
It's the new thing.
I didn't know that.
That's the new craze. It's like the new, it's the new party thing. If you're a jersey wearer at parties, like the new frat kind of mindset.
It's not new, man. Nelly did that all over.
Well, yeah, it's not new.
Growing up, like in the 90s.
It's being brought back. It's like the new, not new. It's a
reoccurring trend.
It's a reoccurring craze that
in culture.
Who was that? Was it Chris Cross that wore his pants backwards? Was that?
I think that's right. Yes.
The next thing you're gonna have like Fat Edwards just come out with some backward shorts.
Yeah, like we're a couple of years away.
Yeah,
we're a couple of years away from going back to the TJ Ford shorts, if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
just go down to your ankles, right? So history has a way of repeating itself. That's obviously very common.
Going in for a layup and just tripping over your shorts.
Over your shorts, right? So the events themselves, the dunk contest, 3-point contest, they're fine. Like, cool events, just nothing really original out of it. It was fun to watch guys and the gals, of course, on the 3-point contest. Just go through that. Not very many of them were great at it. A couple of them only had 6, 7 made shots out of 20 in a I think that's right, 20 or 25 shots. So it really, I don't know, that kind of killed the buzz. The slam dunk contest, you had a lot of misses, and then you had guys just doing windmills and just basic dunks that weren't like, I don't know if you saw Michigan State, one of their guys jumped over 2 people. Like, it wasn't that, right? There was no major dunk, and all of that just combined to it was a nice event. It was great to be back in the Yum Center. You could feel like Tennessee, we're packing this sumbitch out. Like, it's going to be lit up in there for some of those big games early. But
I mean, there's more people. There's more people at Louisville Live than there was a handful of the last few Kenny Payne games.
Yeah, right. I mean, what was there at the end of the second season? I don't think they had a game over 8-5. I mean, maybe 12.
Yeah, he was rarely breaking
10.
Not
even close. So I mean, this was one of those things that you can feel the corner has turned, that we've entered this new era. I think it's finally to the point of games are a month away from being played in terms of exhibitions and getting out on the court, and then just a little bit longer after that before the season starts. So all of that's great. Big takeaways on the court. Noah Waterman, that man has got an absolute stroke. Like, I'm talking automatic from the corner.
Shooter.
My man is going to be an elite pick and pop this season. That will be a cheat code for this offense, is a pick and pop with Chucky or Korner Johnson, and then having Noah Waterman just trail off and get that separation in space that you almost always see with big guys trying to get out and cover three-pointers off the pick and pop. I think he had 16, 19 in the first round at the three-point contest. I thought he was going to win. And I think I don't remember, if I forget exactly the order of events during the games, but I think I got up and went to the bathroom and I just missed the end of that contest and was shocked to see that Rain Smith had won late when I got home. But great to see you've got some shooters. The guys that you expected to be shooters are shooters. They put Kason Pryor in there. Didn't look like much of a standstill shooter in that type of contest, but I think that, again, pick and pops, corner threes, like he's going to be just fine.
Being able to step into it.
Yes, exactly. From the women's side, man, I was super impressed with McKinley Randolph. Like, I think she is going to be an absolute stud in year one. I only really saw her in the 3-on-3, but handling the ball, rebounding, hitting shots. She had a really nice play at the rim on a finger roll. Like, she looked really good. They have so many new players. I didn't remember half of them, to be completely honest with you. I told Press yesterday, it's the first time in maybe 7-8 years where I feel like this is a brand new team. Obviously, you have Olivia Cochran and Nyla Harris and some of the other women that are coming back from last year, but there were a lot of names and faces from either players that didn't play a lot or that were, incoming in the freshman class. Like, I cannot remember her first name, but obviously Gilbert Arenas' daughter. And then you had, is it Amani Berry, I think was the other one, or, there's another really prominent guard. I may not be right on that. I'm clearly not an expert on women's basketball. I got to study the roster. Like, I take away, I got to get in the lab on the women's roster.
Yeah, they brought in 2 or 3 high level transfers this year. Yeah. They have a couple of girls, starting level girls that are returning from last year, and then 2 or 3 freshmen this year as well. He's got a lot of new pieces this year, and
they've got size. I mean, they really do. They've got a couple of.
They got what's her name's dunking. I heard she dunked at Louisville Live.
She did. She missed a couple of times, but she did. She dunked. She poked one. Yeah, it was fingers on rim, ball in. Right, we dunked.
That's a dunk.
That's a dunk. That is a textbook dunk. So that you see a lot of the excitement with this team. I think there's gonna be growing pains with them early on, with just so many new faces and learning in Jeff Wall's system. But what I do know, Olivia Cochran, the star of this team, for sure. She understands her role. Like, she is the focal point. She's going to have to bring it every night. Her energy was unmatched. Like, she's the last one introduced for the women's team. She was fun to watch. But yeah, that's really the big takeaways. I think this event needs some soul searching, guys. I think that's the team, from the marketing side of things. I love what U of L has done from a creative standpoint. I think they are a phenomenal athletic staff that you see them time and time again be able to reinvent and bring things back. In my opinion, here's just my unfiltered opinion. I think we need to push this event back 2 or 3 weeks, closer to exhibitions. I think that this needs to be an event that is at 8, 9 o'clock. I know that's a late one on a Saturday night. Yep. Make this a party. Turn this into a party. Make this, have a show, a concert, event, that just, there's a way to kind of bring the energy back on this like they did the first 2 years. And I think that's just what's missing. So I'm interested to see where they go from there. But boys basketball is back, and this team, man, with the men's team, you just see the energy, the cohesiveness with them, joking around, having a good time. All 13 scholarship players, man, look like they have a role. They understand kind of where they fall in place, and I seriously cannot wait, especially after football yesterday. I'm really excited to start seeing basketball and having something else to talk about as well as football.
The extra added excitement we need. Yes,
just a little juice, just the spark, just something else to get going. So, that's really it. Like I said, a lot of opportunity to add to this, and now that there's hype back in the program, and it's not just a dead fish out of water, I think that they'll have plenty of ideas and time to, I don't know. Sightlines are going to be the hard part to figure out, but Lynn Family Stadium, the soccer stadium, to me, I know that that's bigger than 8,500, which is what they had, but that to me just feels like such a good opportunity. There's all that space outside as well, like in the fan zone. There's just so much opportunity at Lynn Family Stadium. That's my vote of where they go next if they could. But putting a basketball court on a big-ass soccer field, it's like trying to put one out on a football field. I don't really know how it works.
Right. Yeah. Right. Jacob, I'm glad you were able to go while we were, had other obligations we had to attend to and stuff. I know you got to get out of here in a minute or so, but I want to ask you, there were some names in the house, you remember you know there were some recruits that were supposed to be around.
Yeah.
Were you able to see them? Were you able to see any? Were there full families? Was it just a couple guys with one family member? Were there 2 or 3 guys? I think we know of some names, but was there anything we don't know about the recruits that were there?
Yeah, so I did see Tyron Stokes, who was obviously the big name. Great getting him on an official visit.
Number 1 player in the 2026 class right there.
Yes,
it's huge.
A Louisville native. And I think that was just probably the most exciting thing, honestly, of the night was getting that guy in your building and having him be a part of that.
Letting him see the atmosphere, for sure.
He was with Coach Hamilton a lot of the evening. At one point when I looked over, Coach Hamilton was sitting with him on the sideline, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, aren't you supposed to be out there? But I think his job was to kind of be there with him. They might have had somebody else kind of come over and trade off at some point. But I did see him. I saw plenty of pictures of him. I thought the shoe at Jeff Ruby's was freaking dope. Like, love doing all of that. I heard some stories about, fans and, potentially, encountering him or just giving him some love, and love to see that because I know that those 16, 17, 18-year-olds, they love that, right?
Yeah, they pay attention to that.
Right, feeling the buzz, and I think that fans were really excited. But to be honest with you, real quick before I get to the last point, Jaden Johnson, another local guy. Again, if you're going to have local people out, like, let's invite all the teams. Like, let's get a lot of these kids out here. Let's fill up a lot of these seats with high school teams and blow that portion out. If you're only going to bring in like a local kid as your kind of big name recruit for the weekend,
bring in all the local kids.
Bring all the local kids in, and let's just make that a big thing and make that the locals feel loved and important on a night like that. Getting some of the varsity and JV teams in there.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And then I did not see or have any confirmation of Cash Whitehead, who is a class of what, 27, 28? I don't even, goodness gracious, man. That's wild. But Eastern,
I think
High
he's
School,
26 or 27.
Yeah, but Eastern High School native or whatever, goes to Eastern High School. Shout out to my Eagles. Big name, obviously, being the son of Luke Whitehead. So, again, connection, love to see it. Easy, low-hanging fruit there with a couple of these guys. Big, obviously, getting Tyron Stokes on campus, but not too big of a recruiting weekend, but exciting. But one thing I want to say on the recruiting front is 2017, 18, Chris Mack's second year, when you had the Super Six, right? And then you had Aiden Agahan, and all the students brought out the Irish flags, and you had some of these big names on campus that ultimately committed. Like, that allure and that lucklust, like, that's not happening. That didn't happen in this first one. And maybe you just want to kind of go slow and really focus on a few, like really give the energy and pour in versus having a bunch. But I don't, that's the other the other kind of portion of this is if you push it back, maybe you can get more recruits on campus and get some bigger names like a Duke does or a UK does. And I don't know. I just think that was another element of this that kind of just didn't really go very far.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, it's obviously not the first time Louisville's done this, but it's the first time Pat Kelsey's done it. And when there's a name like Tyron Stokes involved, that not messing that up is probably your priority there. So they'll learn from there, how this operation went down, and they'll make their changes for next year. And hopefully we turn some heads and raise some eyebrows this year as well. And some of those things you just said kind of work themselves out just from Louisville kind of getting their what the brand of their name means back a little bit in this first year.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And, you want to get guys in for big time games and atmospheres. And I think they probably thought that last night was going to have a nice crowd, but it wasn't necessarily going to compare to what happens when you have a Duke or North Carolina come to town, and you can use that OV on a name, maybe when you've won some games and your brand is starting to kind of trend upwards. So I think all of it's very strategical. And last thing, fellas, and I'll get out of here, is I want to make sure the fans and listeners understand, like, this is, I sound very negative and bleak, but like, for what this was, the amount of fans that were there, they were loud, they were proud, like fans that were into it. It was very sleepy at times because of just the structure and things. But again, that's just kind of how things go. You get back in there, you find the kinks, you learn from it, and you move on. Overall, again, they'll figure it out, but basketball's back, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jacob. We appreciate that. We appreciate your insights on that as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We really appreciate you hanging with us. We're gonna throw it to break, and when we come back, me and Romy are going to talk a little bit about the actual team and what we might see out there on the floor this year. Jacob, thanks for coming on. See you guys on the other side.
Mr. and Mrs. is for everyone, from a more traditional 90 proof to a cast string that's smoother. In 2013, Russ going to the hole, and boy, could we use that right now. Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon covers tastes, all different taste and preferences, 6 different bourbons that they're offering. Be among the first to try Mr. and Mrs. Bourbon, the official bourbon of the state of Louisville, and the starting 502 podcast on shelves anywhere you find your liquor, and now online at MrandMrsBourbon.com.
All right, Romy, we are back. We're ready to roll. Can I call you Romy, by the way? Is that allowed?
Of course.
All right,
Call me
just
whatever.
making sure. So, for those who don't know, Roman Kelly, producer extraordinaire, maybe the most liked person that I've come across. Like every time that I bring your name up, everybody just gushes over you and thinks you're the best dude ever. But and I mean, it makes sense. You know,
I'm getting there. I'm trying to get there.
being associated with Mike Rutherford as well,
Yeah.
as his producer in the afternoons as well.
Yeah. Getting to show, my takes on things and how I think with him definitely allows for people to get to learn about me and stuff. So I'm not complaining at all. But
I mean, you guys make a great team. But yes, he's Romy Bean on Twitter. So if you're looking for a good follow, that's definitely a guy to follow as well. But no, we do want to talk a little bit about the upcoming team, and I think the best way to do this, Roman, as we're approaching the season, as we look at the calendar right now, we're basically, 4 weeks out from the basketball season and 3 weeks from exhibition season, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're right there. We are right there. Dude.
October 21st, we've got our first game. In my head, I keep saying Old Harris, but it's Young Harris, right?
Young Harris. So
Young Harris.
So this will probably come out on Monday, October 7th. So it will be officially 2 weeks as of the release of this show. So, I mean, we're right there. It's basketball season at this point, right?
It's right here.
And as we're approaching the season, I think the best idea that we could come up with that really, I mean, this is unprecedented, right? Going into a season with
this many new guys. We got 13 new players. We've got a new coach. We've got some high expectations of changes that we're hoping to see this year.
Right.
But we haven't played a game yet.
Right, exactly. So I think the best idea is just to go through each player on each episode, a few players on each episode and try to just kind of break down, what we're seeing with these guys and what they could bring to the table. And, I think we started it out by saying, who's the guy that you're just looking forward to watching play, right? Like who's the guy that this is a guy that's going to stand out to the fans. He's going to become a fan favorite. To me, it's been Kadir Traore. So one thing that I love about this staff is that they're bringing back that Chris Mack gold jersey situation, and of course, to at least not to my surprise, I would say to probably very few people's surprise, Kadir was the first person to earn the gold jersey in practice. So basically, that is. I don't know if he's like Mac. Like I don't know if this is like Mac where they track points, like effort points or something like that, or if it's more just like your gut, right? And then you pass it on to the next person type of thing. But Kadir was the first player to win basically the hustle award, if you will, and get to wear the gold jersey in practice.
Hardest working player at practice, pretty much.
Right. And so I mean that doesn't surprise either one of us. But again, this isn't a guy that when you talk about this Louisville team, he's like the 7th person that people mention normally. Like you're talking about the Chucky Hepburns, the
Terrence Edwards
Juniors,
exactly.
Right, the Terrence Edwards, and you know what? Those guys, they probably will be kind of the foundation. Of
rightfully so.
I mean, those are the guys
they're coming from bigger programs,
right?
More established name that they've made for themselves a little bit so far, partially because of the programs they're coming from, tournament success, all that kind of things over the tenures of their careers. But you're right on there. He's that hardworking, high effort motor guy. I mean, you're about to go into it, I'm sure, but I definitely was not surprised at all to see that he got that first shout for that.
Yeah, I mean, with Kadir, right? This isn't a guy that, the Louisville and Morehead State game is going to come on, and they're going to come up with a graphic on what player to watch for each team. Like, they're not going to point out. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they're going to point out Boubacar Traore, right?
Yeah, at least not at the beginning of the year. He
Right.
won't be. He doesn't have that skill set that immediately is you think is box office must watch TV, right? It's kind of the opposite. He's so good at a lot of different things that he's going to go under the radar from the media and the people who don't watch every single Louisville game and aren't the diehards like we are.
Right.
And maybe not have even seen what he did last year at what was it, Long Beach State, right?
Right. Yeah. So Long Beach State. So let's get acclimated a little bit with Boubacar, aka Kadir Traore. So this is a guy who he's a senior. He's been in school. I think this is actually his fifth year now. He's 6'5", 205 pounds, and he's from the Ivory Coast. So he moved from the Ivory Coast to Canada in
Yep.
high school, and then from Canada out to California to play at Long Beach State. So quite the quite the travel to end up actually here in Louisville. But what really stands out immediately with Kadir is his athleticism and his basketball IQ. Like, this is a dude that jumps out of the gym. He was part of the dunk contest, right, on Friday at Louisville Live. Um, and this is a dude that he does almost everything really, really well. So per Bart Torvik, who is one of our favorite kind of statistician sites to hit up, Traore was the only player in the country last season that had a block rate over 5%, a defensive rebounding rate over 10%, an assist rate over 20%, a block rate over 5%, and a steal rate over 2.5%. And kind of to put that more simply, really, dude he's dishing out assists at the rate of a guard. He's blocking shots at the rate of a center, and he's rebounding at the rate of a forward. So
At
this
a
is
player
a guy,
much bigger than his size. He's
yes,
he's
yes,
playing an all around game at a you see that stat line, you see those percentages, and you would not think 6'5" at all. You would think 6'7"
6'8",
plus at
yeah,
minimum.
right,
Just with that block rate, it's not normal from people under
no,
6'7", 6'8", and you know you're going to go into it, but he's got this wingspan and this athletic jumping ability that he can jump out of the gym. There's not going to be very many games Louisville plays this year where Kader, Boubacar Traore, Kader's the nickname that he's going by from Pat Kelsey and other players on the team, it seems, where he's not the most athletic player in the gym. There's,
right,
I can only name two teams on the schedule right now. One for certain that I know that he might not be, and that's Duke. Right? They've got that big man, Cooper Flag, obviously, and then one other kid who's a freak athlete. But Abubakar, he's a fifth-year senior. He's not a freshman like the kids the kids over at Duke. He's very experienced, got that grown man kind of body already, and his wingspan. Yeah, he's all around defender. He can pretty much guard 1 through 5. It's going to seem like maybe not the vocal point of the offense kind of centers that are going to back you down in the block, like not the Zach Edey's type of players of the world from last year,
right,
but he can hold his own just about with any kind of player that he's going to see this season. So he's
yeah,
going to,
yeah.
I mean,
I
early
mean,
too early to say it kind of a thing here, but he's probably going to be our best defender.
yeah, I mean, one of right. So last year at Long Beach State on a team, he was part of a team that had maybe the most interesting story that a lot of people haven't heard of last year, where they had a coach that they fired just prior to the postseason, and then Long Beach State just went on to win their conference tournament and go to the NCAA tournament. So that's an uncomfortable conversation to have when he goes back to the AD's office after they're going to the NCAA tournament. But regardless, at Long Beach State last year, 12 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Again, just speaks to his versatility and what he brings to the table. The one thing that Kadir doesn't do very well is shoot the ball. This is not a guy that's going to stretch the floor. And so he provides something, he brings a skill set that's pretty substantially different than what a lot of other players on this team bring, right? Like you
Yeah.
look at 1 through 5, um, in your starting lineup, and then probably the first couple of guys that might come off the bench as well. Those are all guys that can stretch the floor. And Kadir's the opposite. Like this is a dude that's going to be in there grabbing boards and dishing out assists and getting into the lane. And it's interesting to see a guy that's such a. And again, he doesn't shoot a lot of threes, so it's a pretty small sample size. But it's interesting to see a guy that just doesn't take a lot of shots, that has such good touch on his passes, and that's so athletic. It's an
it's a good
dynamic
finisher
for
around
sure.
the rim. Most
Right.
guys that don't shoot at all, kind of like this, they're more of like hard, strong finishers. They don't have the soft touch. He's got the soft touch. He's good from 6 feet away as well.
Right.
Which I was very surprised at, which we only got to see a small sample size that in the Bahama games.
Right.
But you can go back to some of his, some of the highlights from last season, some of the footage from last year, and you can see it. He's not going to stretch the floor at all. But in return, at 6'5", he can also go out there and play the power forward position for you. And if you you've got a Case and Pryor and a Noah Waterman out there, 2 guys who can go out there and stretch the floor, who can play that 5 role. Now he's in the power forward position playing in the dunker spot. And he's above the rim. Lob threat pretty much at any time in the half court, which is not normal. It's not normal when guys can off 2 feet be ready to catch a lob at pretty much any point. And you're right. There's one other stat. There's not a stat. I don't know the exact number, but there was not very many players who, outside of the point guard position, are a constant triple-double threat. And I think he had a handful of triple-doubles last year.
Yes. Yeah.
Was it 4? Did he have 4 triple-doubles?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and
or I think it was maybe 2, and then he had like 9, 2 other games where it was like either 9 assists or 9 rebounds or whatever it may have been. I want to say he was on a quadruple-double alert watch one game. But he's an all-around basketball player. You nailed it.
Right. It's, this is a guy that since Louisville's landed him has really stuck out to me, because this is the type of player that you need to win at the highest level. And I understand that he's coming from Long Beach State, and it will be a step up in competition. But it's not like he's coming from some, it's not like he's coming from like Bellarmine or Eastern Kentucky. Or
and they were just in the tournament. I think that was a tournament basketball team.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so he's not coming from a situation where he was at a school of that level. But yeah, it will be a step up in competition. It'll be interesting to see how he adjusts.
That's a great point. That was the last thing I was thinking about too when you brought him up. Is you have to, especially when you have this many guys at this age who are all kind of wanting to take their basketball careers to the next level. You got a lot of guys who are vocal points of their offense coming in. You got a 6th man of the year coming in. You got a leading scorer of his conference coming in. You've got a floor general all-around point guard coming in. You've got some guys who have had the ball in their hand, right? And if you want to be successful, you have to have those unselfish, not necessarily even pass first, but willing to pass, willing to be just a part of the offense kind of a guy. And that's exactly what Kader is. He's completely unselfish. He is going to kick out for, pass up a good shot or a good lane to the rim for an open shot or a great shot. That's what he is. And that's what you have to have if you have, a dream of doing something in March.
Right. And his skill set hopefully will be emphasized and amplified by the talent around him.
Oh yeah. The floor spacing and the level of shooting that we'll have.
Right. Yeah. So that's probably what excites me the most, right? Is that, he has this, very broad skill set, and will become known for being able to do so many different things, that it's just, it's good to know that Louisville has somebody like that. I'm not saying he's the only player like that on this team, but given his size and his athleticism and what he can do around the rim, I think the fans are going to be really impressed with this guy. That's why I wanted to bring him up first, because we will get to Fat and we will get to Kaysen and a lot of these other guys. But this is one that I mean, this is a guy that's going to help you win. And so that's what gets me going, man. So you want to talk about a guy who, again, is another one that I think when people think about this team, they don't immediately bring him up, and it's
You
probably
do. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they
yeah,
think about him, but not for the reasons that enough people are talking about. I feel like, you know,
right,
they're
right,
not bringing up the things that are going to be important, you know, for our
right,
team with this player. I think,
right.
and that's Chucky Hepburn. Chucky Hepburn is a player who we think about when we think about him and what he'll offer for us, we immediately go to he's experienced. He's been at Wisconsin. He started, what is it? I believe I pulled it up here. He's played 103 games in his career, and from what I know, he has started all 103
Yes,
games.
that's correct.
At a power program, which Wisconsin's been a tournament team a couple times in his career.
Right.
This is a player who has defended some of the best guards in the country at the time. He's played in up-tempo offense. He's played in slower offense. He's seen a lot of different offenses and defenses.
Works.
Yeah, a lot of different looks
Right.
in his time in college basketball. 103 games is a lot. To have started and been the point guard and the floor general for all of those, granted, obviously, when he was a freshman, he was learning and going through the trials and tribulations of being a freshman at a power, top program like Wisconsin. But Chucky Hepburn is a dog defensively. This is what people keep bringing up, and he is. He's going to be one of the best defenders and on-ball defenders in the ACC. He's going to be one of the best guard defenders in the country. And he already was. He is that coming into us right now. He also is a very, very, very high IQ offensive player.
Right.
He knows where everybody on the court on his team should be. He knows where the defense is typically going to be as well, which is one of the most underrated aspects of a point guard. When you have someone who in any kind of pressure is going to keep his dribble alive, understand where the defense is at, where it's coming from, and be able to maneuver on the court and get the ball where it needs to be. You can't. It takes years to coach that, and he's been taught. He's been coached. He has it. He has it already. He has that full-on ball security. You can trust everything he's going to do when the ball's in his hands. But he can also score the ball, Press.
Right.
He's a true point guard. He's got it all. He's got a handle. He has a quick first step. He knows when his man can't stay in front of him, he will take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Knockdown shooter off the catch, right? He knows his game. He's not going to sit there and try to dribble too much and get a step back jumper off. And the craziest thing about that is, if need be, he can create his own shot. He can create his own jump shot. He can get space. This is not his game, and he knows that because he's smart. He's got a high IQ. He's not going to do too much. His ability to finish at the rim, I think, is also a very underrated one. He's willing to go. He accepts contact. He likes contact. He isn't a slasher, so he's not often getting to the rim. But when he does, when he sees the lane, when he has the mismatch in front of him with the big, he will take advantage of that. He's quick to see those kind of things. But even more so as a passer, when he sees a mismatch on the other side of the court from someone off ball screen, he's going to pinpoint that quickly and get the ball where it needs to be. You are going to see a lot of lobs this year from Chucky Hepburn to whoever it is because of the way that these guys are going to be moving off the ball, the motion offense that Pat Kelsey's going to want to play. The ball is not going to stop. There's not going to be any dead periods with the ball. And Chucky Hepburn's kind of the perfect point guard for that. He's going to keep the ball moving. He's going to kind of command his teammates and command them to the spaces they need to be. And you're not going to have to worry about what he's doing out there. That is going to be one of the most underrated aspects of Chucky Hepburn. Him being a second coach out there to Pat Kelsey and what he's trying to do, some people, we get to hear the people who do point that out, but I just think that's one aspect of Chucky Hepburn's game that the average fan who maybe didn't watch a lot of Wisconsin last year or hasn't been able to, really do a lot of research on Chucky, they might not realize that he can score the ball. He doesn't shoot a lot of shots, but there isn't a lot on offense he can't do. And he's going to catch a body this year. Press. We're going to have to look at the schedule deep down and try to figure out when it is. He will dunk on somebody this year in the half court. Not on he will dunk on someone in the half court. Mark my words. He's an athlete. He's an all-around athlete. He is a high IQ basketball player, and he knows exactly what the coach is always asking of him. you can't ask for more than that, right? I don't think, defensively, there's not going to be a lot of guards in the ACC that are going to be better. There's not going to be a lot of guards in the ACC that you're worried about, that you're going to have to worry as much as you normally would when you have someone like Chucky. RJ Davis, I'm ready for that matchup. I am ready for that matchup.
Yeah.
Chucky Davis is going to give him a bad day. He's going to, or not a bad day, but a hard day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You can't coach that. You can't just go and find that in a freshman, right? It's getting a fifth-year player who has that ability.
Right.
You can't beat it.
So let me tell you what I like about the Chuckster too. So 161 career steals, which is nothing to sneeze at, right? But
103 games, 161 steals. Do the math.
That's quality. Those are good numbers. And so when you look at his game, though, I think when you think about a prototypical, a little bit undersized Louisville style defensive guard, you automatically think Peyton and Russ. But I think that he reminds me more of.
I mean,
if you remember the season where they had Preston Knowles and Jerry Smith coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Patino called him the microwave guy.
Was Jerry Smith number 34?
34, yeah. And so
I remember this. He was shorter. He was shorter than Preston.
Yes, yeah. So, and I forget too. You're probably a little bit younger when these guys were, but regardless, yeah. You'd remember during the Kyle Currick game, he came in for Jerry Smith when he was injured in the last game in Freedom Hall. So, if you remember Jerry waving the towel on the bench, but no, I mean that's the type of defensive tenacity that he's going to bring, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a guy that defends well without fouling. And he defends well within the construct of your defense, right? Like he's not out there just trying to West Virginia style
rip the opposing guard. Yeah,
he's right. He's
trying to give his team an advantage defensively at all times.
Yes, correct. And he doesn't necessarily have to be on the opposing point guard either to make that happen.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a guy that you can bring off the opposing point.
He's a great defender off the ball as well.
Right. And so again, we talk about that versatility, and you talk about, he's just going to make winning plays. He's going to do things that are needed to simply win the game for you. Some of the biggest plays in his career were, we have the offense running and you just can't get a shot off. And so he just makes it happen. And that's what, I think that's what people are going to love about the Chuckster.
You saw it in the Bahamas. There's very, very few plays where this happened. We had a couple broken plays where the first initial set didn't create the, scoring option that we wanted. Chucky gets the ball back. He resets with 10, 11 seconds on the shot clock. He's running a screen and roll and finding the open man again in a different set with 4 seconds left to score. Obviously the defense isn't ACC level defending, but in a broken play, he was able to recoup and still find positioning for a new little quick pick and roll to get something happening. He's just smart. He's high IQ, and he knows what his team typically needs at all times.
He just has a great feel for the game, and that's something that sounds super stereotypical, but it's true. I mean, this
is one of those things the eye test shows it.
Right. He passes the eye test with flying colors. Again, I think Koren Johnson's an excellent guard, and he's going to do really well this season. But there was a significant drop off from Chucky to Koren on the defensive end whenever they subbed 1-for-1.
Yeah.
So that'll be something to watch as well.
That will be something because you also the size you get with Chucky, and Chucky's not he's 6'2". He's no slouch defensively either, but he's also they put on here 211 pounds. I don't know if he's up that heavy, but
that beefy. Yeah.
We will have teams where the guards are just bigger than Chucky and Korn and Rain. While you can be a pest, he's still 6'2". And it'll be tough for Korn out there when the both of them are out there, I think, because Korn doesn't have the switch ability that Chucky has on different types of guards. But I think what you get with his command of his teammates from him on both ends of the floor, it kind of makes up for anything that he may lack. He gets everybody on the same page, Press.
Right.
You saw it in Wisconsin. You saw it in the 2 games of the Bahamas. You see it in the practice clips. He's always talking. He's always pointing. He's always showing people where they need to be, and he's finding the open man every time he has the ball. It seems like.
Right. He is listed as 6'2", 190 on the roster. So
okay, so that's I don't know. I'm looking over here at
I don't know. Yeah, Omaha, Nebraska native, by the way. I couldn't tell you the last time Louisville had a Nebraska-born guard on their team. I think I actually went back and tried to look this up. Like I was looking over rosters, like going back to the 60s, and I was like, I don't see any Nebraska guys. Like, but Chucky, I mean, he's got that cornbread mentality, right? That corn-fed mentality, not cornbread.
Yeah, he's not going to give up an inch.
Mentality.
He's not giving up an inch for anything.
No.
And you got to have that. You got to have that when you're, team, when you have March aspirations as well. You got to have those dogs, especially when it's like your floor general, your point guard. He has to set the tone. The ball's going to be in his hands the most. He's your captain. He's your leader. And there's not very many guys out there who are better tone setters and examples to follow from their own actions than a player like Chucky Hepburn.
Absolutely not. Yeah, and I think we got the title for the podcast as well. The corn-fed mentality of Chucky Hepburn right there.
I like that.
So before we get out of here, there were a few kind of loose ends that we left off last time just because we were trying to get in a lot of information after the schedule reveal. But one thing we haven't really dove into, and I mean, like we stated previously, 4 weeks out from the first real game of the season, which means that we're 4.5 weeks from, Louisville's first real test.
First real test.
Tennessee.
It's less than a month away, Press. Less than a month. Or the Tennessee, but our first official game, Morehead State, just to open the season. What, 29 days? 29 days away? 28?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have real organized basketball in 14 days, dude. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that right there.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah, so I think we owe it to the, we'll have more time for this as well, but I at least want to kind of take a look at these first couple games, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, Morehead State, we're going to keep passing over them because they played Tennessee the same week. And when the rankings come out, you would figure that Tennessee is a top 20 to 25 type of team, a team that's going to, draw an audience. I mean, it's,
Tennessee. The one weird thing about this game is it's at the same exact. Duke and UNC we all play on UNC or on ACC Network on November 9th. I think that's a little bit weird, a little bit unnecessary. I think you're not giving the chance to everybody to kind of look at the ACC talent that you've got on display. But I digress. That's not my worry. It's not for me to worry about. Tennessee's bringing back 7 returning players, Press. This is going to be an immediate test for Pat Kelsey. They've got 4 transfers. Four players in the transfer portal, and then they got a top 100 freshman coming in. One of those players in the transfer portal was one of the top players in the transfer portal. I keep blanking on his name, but
let me get that name for you.
Chaz Lanier.
Yeah, there you go.
Chaz Lanier from where? Where did he play from? Florida. It was where was Chaz Lanier?
Check it out. See, normally you're the one producing and looking this stuff up.
Yeah, I normally have this stuff kind of ready for me. North Florida. He came from North Florida last year, and he averaged.
He was an Osprey.
Yeah, he averaged 19.7 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game. A part of the North Florida team that beat UK last year as well. He's the real deal. He's up there. He was, one of the highestly touted players in the transfer portal this year. He was going to be always playing, averaging 19 points per game at basically 20 points per game at University of North Florida. Sorry. He was going to be highly touted, but what
are you thinking?
They've also got the Zakai Zegler kid that they brought back. He was the defensive player of the year last year, the SEC defensive player of the year last year.
Right.
That this is Chaz is what, 6'8"? This is No, he's not. He's not that tall, is he?
Chaz, or are we talking about the
Chaz
guy
is 6'4". Chaz is 6'4".
Yeah.
But what's his name's like 6'10", I believe. The
Yeah.
Zakai. Yeah, he's the real deal. No, I'm getting all their names mixed up. Zegler's also a guard.
Zakai,
he's also a guard.
Okay. Who are we thinking of?
I gotta look it
I
up.
need you to pull up that Tennessee roster. Why you do that? So I was just curious and looked up what the football slate looks like that day. Like, how many eyes are going to be on this game?
There is a big game that day. There's big day of college football that day.
Alabama, LSU.
Zegler, he's 5'9". He SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He's a lot similar to a Chucky Hepburn kind of a player. He's a dog. He's a pest. He's everywhere on the court. He can shoot. He can dribble. He can finish. You're pairing him up with Chaz in the backcourt. Mm-hmm. That's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. And then their big man is good as well.
Yeah.
This is a big game for us. This is your second official game of the season. It's on your home floor, which is huge. Yum Center is going to be packed. This is a huge test for a team that already has a lot of pieces that are that worked together last year. They were a good team last year. They're going into the season number 13 in the way too early projected rankings. So far, we don't know what they're going to be at for sure, but this is a good basketball team. This is going to be a high-scoring basketball team. It's going to be an athletic basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their roster, right, and they return like 7 or 8 guys from last year. So it's already going to be a team that's been playing together a lot more, much more cohesive unit. Now, that doesn't mean that Louisville can't come in and get the job done, but they've had a lot less time to assimilate, and they haven't played a lot of organized basketball together yet. So, I mean, it's going to be tough adjusting. It's going to be a tough road ahead adjusting, but it is good that they do have, young Harris, Spalding, and Morehead State before they played Tennessee. I was looking at what that slate looks like November 9th, and you have, let's see, just very quickly, stuff that stands out: Georgia and Ole Miss.
It's a huge game.
Currently a top 10 matchup. You have Miami, Georgia Tech, Alabama, LSU. You have Clemson, Virginia Tech, which is a solid game. Iowa State, Kansas, Oklahoma and Missouri, Michigan and Indiana, sneaky good matchup there. IU already bowl eligible. And then you have Notre Dame and Florida State, Texas and Florida. Like, there's some big game.
Pretty much all of those games will have end of season, ramifications for most of those teams playing. Luckily, our Cardinals are not playing. They will not. They will be on a bye week. Our football team won't be playing. So anybody with season tickets will be freed up, be able to make it down to the Yum Center. I'm sure this will be a 7 p.m. Or do we already know? It's a 7 p.m.er, isn't it?
The Tennessee game. Let's double check.
Tennessee 7 p.m.
There you go.
No, Saturday at 12. Saturday at 12 on the SEC Network. 12 o'clock. Why would they do that? Why would they do that?
Well, yeah,
they had to. They probably had to with all the football on. You weren't going to get that game on ESPN.
It doesn't make sense. Like, what are they going to have on ACC Network between 2 and 3:30? Just going to have all ACC or something on?
Probably. There's no way there's a.
It's
no way another ACC team's playing a bigger team than us on November 9th, though. There's no way an ACC team on November 9th is playing a bigger team than us.
Oh, no. I'm saying, like, football wise.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
if you look at the football schedule that day, I mean, there's some quality matches.
Yeah, that might be the only basketball game on the SEC Network that day, which it should be if there is any other ACC teams playing. But I'm just like I just said, there's no way any ACC teams are playing anybody that big that soon. I'd have to go look to be certain, obviously, but I highly doubt it.
So so let me ask you this: if you're, I mean, I think we can kind of lock in on Tennessee for just a second, because it feels like this is going to be the first true test. It's going to be kind of a litmus test, a barometer on which to kind of set your expectations for the season. I think a lot of people that are super high on the team, if it's a close loss or even a blowout loss, might change their minds a little bit. People who aren't quite bought in, it's a great game. The the vibes can change a lot with this game. And so, if you're a team like Tennessee, you're coming into a hostile environment in Louisville with a team, ready to prove itself. What's your game plan? Like, how do you plan to beat this team?
Yeah. So if it's me, if I'm, the Tennessee's coach, I'm coming to this game. It's probably going to be the most people in this arena in a year and a half.
Yeah.
You got to try to keep the crowd out of it. The crowd's they're gonna be lit. They're gonna be ready for that first 3-pointer. They're gonna ready to open up.
It'll be a factor.
You're coming. I mean, I'm gonna assume we get a lot of jump shots up against Morehead State, right? So you're going into this mindset: limit the open threes, force them off the line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna assume a lot of teams are gonna initially look at us and say, "We're the bigger team,
right?
We've got more size in the paint, right? We should be able to win the battle in the paint defensively, be able to contest shots without fouling."
Right.
They're going to see Case and Pryor. They're going to think, oh, he's skinny. They're going to see Noah Waterman. They're going to think, oh, he can't defend that well. They're going to see Bourbon Kader Traore. They're going to think, oh, he's 6'5",
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to think that Terrence Edwards, he's kind of slim.
Right.
Rain, Korner, they're not the biggest guys, which they're going to spend a lot of time on the court. There's not going to be a lot of minutes of Louisville basketball without Rain and Korner at the same time.
Right.
Partially because it'll be tough to play them together. Right. So you're going to be staggering those guys a lot and wanting ideally both of them to play minutes with Chucky.
Right.
You're looking at this game. You're going to try to limit the 3-pointers. You're not going to have a sample size that suggests Pat Kelsey's going to try to actively out offensive rebound a lot. If Pat Kelsey, we know that. We know that that's coming. We know what a Bourbon Traore is at. We know that Javon Hadley and Terrence Edwards have already, and James Scott especially, have already been told, go try to get a tip out if you can. You got to limit the offensive rebounds and the threes. Anybody who can win the rebound battle against us, which I'm not saying is going to be like we're going to be some crazy good rebounding team, but you're going to have the advantage if you're limiting our second chance opportunity points. If you limit our second chance points, that's why we got such quick leads against those teams in the Bahamas, because clearly we're being told on every offensive rebound, if you don't have a wide open layup, you kick it out. We're getting open. We're going to get a lot of open threes like that because it's such, younger kids, younger guys, they get an offensive rebound. It's a free possession in their head and they're ready to go back up, try to, make a play for themselves. That's not going to happen a lot in Pat Kelsey's system. So you have to limit the second chance points. You have to limit, which means limiting this offensive rebounds. That's going to be the emphasis on anybody who plays us. And then we're deep.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to stay out of foul trouble. You have to have your best players at the end of the game because, our 6th, 7th, 8th guys can play and play well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, those are all great points. I mean, I think the other caveat, you mentioned rebounding well. Louisville is going to do a good job of trying to limit it to one and dones on the defensive end because, Kelsey's teams are known for either getting the ball in bounds very quickly or getting that rebound and getting a run out. And so that's just another challenge that you pose as well. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that teams are going to try to match their bigs against Louisville's bigs. But I always go back to the conversation that we had in the offseason a little bit about, does it matter that Louisville doesn't have a traditional back to the basket big? I think the answer that we've kind of come to, like the conclusion we've kind of come to, is simply, you create a team that you're forcing the other opponent to have to prepare for you. You don't create a team to face the other opponent, and so make them figure out how they're going to defend you. Make them figure out how how they're going to run an offensive set against you. So.
And you trust that you trust that the defensive game plan it prevents it on the flip side. You trust that one player can't beat us when we go up against those guys, those big men who do have those those high level offensive big men who can go create their own shots and stuff. And they are the offense, right? The Cooper Flags, those kind of guys can't beat you by yourself.
Right.
You go in and adjust. You go in and find a way for your game plan to make theirs harder. That's what you got to do.
let's leave it on this. And maybe we can dive into Battle for Atlantis next time, right? Like we'll pick
Yeah,
two
for
more
sure.
players,
Be
dive
a little bit
into
sooner. It'll be coming up
yeah,
real soon.
yeah,
So
yeah. Dive into maybe Indiana, dive into some Ole Miss, maybe. Um, but yeah, I would just leave you with if you're looking at this roster right now. I think a conversation Jacob and I had yesterday that was pretty intriguing was, when you look at this roster, you try to figure out who's not going to play. Who are the guys that are going to miss out on the minutes? Like, I think people instinctually will say Frank Ansel and eBay, but it's like, if one of Louisville's bigs get hurt, eBay becomes a legitimate piece on this team.
3 fouls in the
Um,
first half from a big, and
yeah, yeah,
he's going to get some minutes that game.
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, there's other guys that stand out. We haven't talked about the freshman. Why am I blanking on his name? Kanai. Thank you. That it's because I always want to say Connie,
Yeah,
and then everybody's
I do
correcting me
too.
on the
I
Kanai.
do too. I don't know
So
why
I
I
mean,
keep
is
having
is
that
it
issue, but
is it Kanai? Is it like you go down the list. I mean, there's 8 or 9 guys. You're like that guy has to play.
yeah,
That guy has
Kanai's
to
one of
play.
your. He's a 3-and-D, and he can put the ball on the floor and slash, and he's clearly a good playmaker. He's going to make the right pass. You don't have to really
Right.
worry about him
Right.
already. Based on what we've seen in the Bahamas, he showed he can play with the guys we have on the team easily.
Absolutely.
So you're
Absolutely.
right. That is, guys are going to have to sacrifice. Guys are going to have to know that you were playing 30 minutes a game last year, and you might not get that this year. You might only get 22, right? You're going to have to make those sacrifices because we have a lot of guys who are contributing a lot of different things. We have multiple guys bringing multiple things to the table. And that's what you get when you get, 1, 13 new players, but 2, when you get more than half of those guys being multiple-year college basketball players with lots of experience. So it's going to be some sacrifices to be made. We're gonna have to trust Pat Kelsey and Coda to figure out, what system works best, who needs to play with who. They've had plenty of time to kind of see who, molds well with who, and it's also going to be a little bit of trials and tribulations. You're going to have to get out there against Young Harris and the Spaldings and get that game against Tennessee and Morehead State out of the way, and then you get Bellarmine and you get to regroup and kind of figure things out with not. It's not like you go to Tennessee, you get the Battle for Atlantis, but you do get to come back and regroup a little bit.
Right.
So you're right. I don't know the answer to that question yet. I don't have like a direct anyone I'm leaning that feels like, well, they're going to have to see if they can improve this first, right? I have a couple thoughts that, high-paced level offenses that are going to be moving the ball just as much as we are. I worry if Noah Waterman can really shuffle his feet at the quickness that Kason Pryor and Kadir Traore can, right? There's going to be games and matchups where some guys aren't going to fit in as well as some others, and that's just going to be the case, I believe. But almost everybody on the team is bringing multiple facets of skills to the table, so it's a good problem to have. It's a good issue to have, especially for a first year of a coach.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's a fun conversation because it's not necessarily a tough conversation.
Yeah, it's centered around positives. Yeah,
right. And I will continue to remind people. I think people are going to be surprised at how versatile this lineup and every lineup going forward under Pat Kelsey is going to be. The way that he and this coaching staff approach the game is a view of, a lot of guys play. Sometimes they'll play 15 minutes. Sometimes they'll play 32 minutes. And it's just about fit. It's about, just different depth pieces. It's about
whose shots falling, who's hot, who's not. It's
exactly.
a lot of different factors go into
it's the Bobby Petrino running back conundrum, right? Like you can never have too many running backs. You can never have too much depth on a basketball team.
You never have too many guys who can shoot.
Yeah, I mean, you could see Kanai Roos come out and play 22 minutes one game, and then maybe 4 the next game.
Yeah,
and
you might see Kadir Traore start one game and not play more than 15 the next. It will happen.
Yep.
There's
what else will happen?
You have 13 guys who can play.
That first loss or the first close win or whatever it is, and it could be us too, Romy. We're gonna the fan base is gonna be out there like, why didn't we play Case and Pryor?
Yeah.
Like, that's how it's
Why
gonna go.
can I only get 11 minutes?
Right. And this is the way that the staff's gonna approach it, and I think it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah,
I think
and you're
it's
gonna
gonna
have
be really
to.
fun to
It's
watch.
gonna be trial and error as well. You're not gonna really
Right.
know for sure until you get out there and put these guys on the court and see how they match up against the talent that you've got on your schedule.
Absolutely. Hey, well, that's I think we're up against it, so that's gonna be pretty much it for this week. Make sure you follow Roman on Twitter, please.
Give me a follow at Romy Bean.
At Romy Bean, at Press Meyer on Twitter, at The State of Blue, at Starting 502. Until next time, let's get out of here and go Cards.
Go Cards.